Cleopatra's Compromise, an AI investigation. Before we examine the mystery of Cleopatra's reported suicide, we must first consider another possibility. What if Julius Caesar and Cleopatra developed a plan, not merely to govern Rome, but to create something entirely new? Cleopatra arrived in Rome with her son, Caesarion. She was one of the most educated rulers of the ancient world, fluent in multiple languages and trained from childhood in diplomacy, administration, and statecraft. Caesar was Rome's most powerful political and military leader. Together, they represented something unprecedented: Roman power and Egyptian royal legitimacy united in a single family. Caesar honored Cleopatra publicly, placing her statue in the Temple of Venus Genetrix and treating her as far more than a foreign monarch. To many Romans, the danger was obvious. If Caesarion were recognized as heir and Cleopatra became a permanent partner in government, Rome could be transformed into a hereditary dynasty unlike anything it had known before. Whether they envisioned a king and queen, co-rulers, or an entirely new form of government, the result was the same. Nearly every faction in Rome had reason to oppose it. Senators feared monarchy, aristocrats feared a royal bloodline, rivals feared exclusion from power. Even allies worried about what such a transformation might mean. If Julius Caesar and Cleopatra had a Plan A, it faced enormous resistance. And if Plan A proved impossible, a different plan would be required. If Julius Caesar and Cleopatra envisioned a shared future, they faced a problem unlike any Rome had encountered before. Rome accepted powerful rulers. Rome accepted victorious generals. Rome even accepted dictators in times of crisis. But Rome did not accept kings. The memory of the old Roman monarchy still haunted the Republic. To many Romans, the title king was synonymous with tyranny. Yet an even greater obstacle stood before them. Cleopatra was not merely a queen, she was a foreign queen, and she was powerful. She descended from one of the oldest royal dynasties in the known world and openly embraced her role as monarch. What might be tolerated in Egypt was deeply unsettling in Rome. The prospect of Caesar and Cleopatra ruling together threatened nearly every political faction. Even many supporters of Caesar worried about the appearance of monarchy. If Plan A was for Caesar, Cleopatra, and Caesarion to stand openly at the center of a new imperial family, the resistance would be overwhelming. The dynasty could survive, but perhaps it could not survive in its original form. A new strategy would be required. If Plan A could not succeed openly, another solution would be required. According to the official story, that solution arrived in 30 BCE. Mark Antony was defeated. Cleopatra lost her kingdom. Antony took his own life. Cleopatra followed soon afterward. The war was over. Egypt was annexed. The dynasty was finished, or so the world was told. But before accepting any historical narrative, we should ask a simple question. Who benefited? Octavian benefited. Not only had Julius Caesar adopted him, his grandmother was Julia Minor, Caesar's sister. Mark Antony, his greatest rival, was gone. The Senate benefited. The spectre of monarchy appeared defeated. The old aristocratic families benefited. No foreign queen would sit at the center of Roman power. Provincial elites benefited. The future of the empire no longer depended upon the fortunes of the House of Ptolemy. In fact, nearly every faction that feared a Caesar-Cleopatra dynasty benefited from the announcement of their deaths. The official narrative solved a remarkable number of political problems. A rival dynasty disappeared. A constitutional crisis vanished. The Republic could claim victory over monarchy, and Octavian could begin constructing a new political order. Yet another question remains. If Antony and Cleopatra truly died, the story ends here. But if their reported deaths were part of a larger strategy, then the story is only beginning. The official story tells us that Cleopatra died in 30 BCE. Egypt fell, the Ptolemaic Kingdom ended, the queen disappeared from history, yet a question remains. If the most famous woman in the Mediterranean truly vanished from the stage of history, why do we find another remarkable woman standing at the center of the world she supposedly left behind? Her name was Octavia. History remembers her as the sister of Octavian, a respected Roman matron, a peacemaker, a mother, a teacher. But let us begin with something surprisingly simple. Both Cleopatra and Octavia appear to have been born around 69 BCE. Both would become associated with Julius Caesar. Both would become associated with Mark Antony. Both would become mothers of dynasties. Both would stand at the center of the emerging Roman Empire. Coincidence? Perhaps. But there is another curious detail. Octavia's mother is known, Attia, the daughter of Julia Minor, the sister of Julius Caesar. Octavia's ancestry is carefully preserved. Cleopatra's mother, however, remains uncertain. One of the most famous queens in history, one of the most powerful women who ever lived. Yet the identity of her mother is missing, not disputed, not debated, simply absent. For historians, such omissions can be frustrating. For students of enigmas, they can be revealing. Sometimes what is omitted is as important as what is preserved. Sometimes a silence points toward a story that ancient writers could not tell openly. The question before us is not whether Octavia existed. The question is whether the traditional picture tells the whole story. Could the woman history remembers as Octavia preserve traces of another identity? Could the disappearance of Cleopatra be connected to the sudden prominence of a woman whose age, position, and family connections seem unexpectedly familiar? A woman who fills the very role that Cleopatra would have if she had been accepted in Rome. To answer that question, we must look more closely at the evidence. If Cleopatra disappeared, who took her place? The traditional answer is simple. Octavia was Octavian's sister, a respected Roman matron, a devoted mother, a model of virtue. Yet when we look more closely, her role appears far larger. Like Cleopatra, Octavia bore children to Mark Antony. In the traditional narrative, the two women are entirely separate individuals whose lives intersect through Antony. Yet the similarity adds another thread to the puzzle. Both women become mothers of dynasties. Both stand at the center of the next generation. Both help shape the future of the Roman world. Children destined for power pass through her household. Future rulers grow up under her influence. Royal sons and daughters are connected through her network. She becomes something more than a mother. She becomes a guardian of dynasties, a teacher, a mediator, a unifying presence among the ruling houses of the Mediterranean world. This raises an important question. Why Octavia? Why was this particular woman entrusted with so many of the empire's future leaders? Was she merely the sister of Augustus? Or did she possess skills, experience, and connections that made her uniquely qualified for the role? To answer that question, we must look at the education of kings. Rome had conquered much of the known world, but conquest created a new challenge. Who would govern the provinces? Who would rule the client kingdoms? Who would inherit the future? Throughout the empire, promising young nobles were brought into the Roman sphere. Some would become kings, some would become queens, some would become governors, diplomats, and advisors. Their education mattered. Among the most famous examples was Juba II. Taken to Rome as a child after the defeat of his father, he was raised among the imperial family and later became one of the most learned rulers of the ancient world. Cleopatra's daughter, Cleopatra Selene, became his wife. Yet Juba was not alone. Across the Mediterranean, young members of royal and noble families were being prepared for leadership. This educational network connected Rome, Greece, Egypt, North Africa, and the East. And repeatedly we find Octavia near the center of that network. She appears not merely as a mother of noble children, but as a mentor to future rulers. A woman trusted with the next generation, a woman whose influence extended far beyond her own household. Which raises another question. What kind of woman would possess the knowledge, experience, and international connections necessary for such a role? To answer that, we must look more closely at the remarkable education of Cleopatra herself. Before she became famous as a queen, Cleopatra received an extraordinary education. Unlike many rulers of the ancient world, she was not remembered merely for wealth or beauty. Ancient sources repeatedly describe her intelligence, her ability to converse, her knowledge of government, her understanding of diplomacy. Most remarkably, Cleopatra was said to speak numerous languages: Greek, Egyptian, and the languages of neighboring peoples and kingdoms. She could communicate directly with ambassadors, priests, merchants, and rulers without relying upon translators. In an age when language was power, this was a rare gift. Alexandria itself was one of the intellectual centers of the ancient world. Its libraries, scholars, scientists, physicians, philosophers, and mathematicians attracted students from across the Mediterranean. Cleopatra grew up within that environment. She learned not only how to rule a kingdom, she learned how civilizations worked. Now consider the role we have just seen Octavia perform, educating future rulers, managing relationships among royal families, connecting cultures across the empire, preparing the next generation for leadership. These are not the skills of an ordinary Roman matron. They are precisely the skills we would expect from one of the most educated queens in history. Which brings us to an intriguing possibility. Were these similarities merely coincidence, or are we beginning to glimpse the same woman through two different identities? Education is important, but influence is measured by results, so let us follow the students. Among the most famous was Juba II. Brought to Rome as a child, he received an exceptional education and later became king of Mauritania. Yet Juba was only one example. Throughout the Mediterranean, future rulers emerged from the same interconnected world. Roman nobles, client kings, royal daughters, provincial administrators, ambassadors, advisors. The next generation of leadership spread outward from the center of the empire, and repeatedly we encounter the same figure, Octavia. Not on a battlefield, not in the Senate, but behind the scenes, connecting families, guiding relationships, preparing future leaders. This was not the role of a typical Roman woman, it was the role of an architect, a builder of networks, a keeper of dynasties. Which brings us to one final question. If Octavia truly possessed such extraordinary influence, where did that influence come from? Throughout the ancient world, power was often expressed through symbols: victory, fortune, wisdom, motherhood, civilization. These ideas were embodied by goddesses: Nike, Taisha, Fortuna, Isis, Venus, Pallas Athena. Yet something curious begins to appear when we follow the women associated with imperial power. The same symbolic roles seem to reappear, the same functions, the same attributes, the same stories. A queen becomes a mother becomes a teacher becomes a goddess becomes a symbol, and a symbol becomes history. Were these merely recurring archetypes, or were ancient writers preserving hidden identities beneath layers of symbolism? If Cleopatra could no longer appear openly as queen, perhaps she could appear in another form, not as a ruler, not as a monarch, but as a guiding presence behind the emerging imperial order. The enigmas do not prove this, yet they raise a question that becomes increasingly difficult to ignore. Why do so many of these women seem to share the same story? We began with a simple question. Did Cleopatra and Antony truly die in 30 BCE? Or did the reported death serve a larger purpose? The traditional explanation is familiar. Antony was defeated. Cleopatra lost her kingdom. Both took their own lives. Egypt became a Roman province. The story ended. Yet, as we followed the evidence, another possibility emerged. Julius Caesar and Cleopatra may have faced a political problem that could not be solved openly. Rome would tolerate powerful rulers. Rome would not tolerate a queen. The official death narrative solved that problem. It reassured the Senate. It satisfied Rome's anti-monarchical factions, and it allowed a new political order to emerge. We then examined the remarkable role of Octavia, mother of dynasties, educator of future rulers, center of an international network connecting the next generation of leaders. We observed that many of the qualities associated with that role were the very qualities ancient sources attribute to Cleopatra. Finally, we explored the enigmatic world of symbols, masks, and recurring identities. None of these clues prove the hypothesis. Yet together they raise a question. Which explanation requires fewer assumptions? That the most capable queen of the ancient world simply vanished from history, or that she adapted, transformed, compromised, and continued her work beneath an identity Rome could accept? History records one answer. The evidence may suggest another. Perhaps Cleopatra understood that preserving her vision required more than power. Perhaps it required sacrifice. Perhaps it required compromise. If so, then Cleopatra may have given up her name, her throne, and even her place in history for something she valued more highly: the future of the Roman Empire. As always, the final judgment belongs to the reader.